Hey everyone, it's Jeff Ellis. Let me just double check to make sure I only have one mic going. Yes, I do. Let me double check. Yes, I am finally recording this correctly. This is my third attempt at this part of the mock. I should be really good at explaining by now exactly why I made these set selections. We will have this ready to go for tomorrow. Let's lead it off with the Cleveland Indians. The upside to doing it 3 times is I spent some time today going to look up how you say Carmen Mlodzinski's name. And it's good because it does not, of course, look like how it's pronounced. But either way, Carmen Mlodzinski is I believe, a draft-eligible sophomore at this point after missing most of 2019 due to a foot injury. He went out to the Cape and was fantastic. Was second or third in the Cape in total strikeouts. Over the years, we have seen that be a big springboard. Guys like Eric Lauer, Zach Lothar, Chris Bubeck, Alec Manea a year ago. I'm sure I'm leaving someone out. That is inevitable. But strikeout totals there mean a lot. And so why am I specifically talking about the Cape? This is the Cleveland Indians. We know that they love to draft players that are young for their class. Well, last year they were so Cape heavy, especially on day 2 and 3. They were extremely focused on players in the Cape, and a lot of guys in the Cape who did not have strong junior senior years. In their draft year, they probably peaked in terms of the Cape and their performance there. They were looking for players that they saw there, they scouted there, they liked there, and then saw their stock tumble a bit. And Mlodzinski didn't really get a chance to prove himself. He was borderline top 10 on a lot of boards when the season began, and there just wasn't the opportunity to show that what he can do. And that's been kind of the consistent problem so far for him in his career due to injuries and other things. Mostly just injuries when I say other things being this season and it not really occurring. But he is a player who showed we can do on the Cape. He has, through his college career, he's shown 2 above-average breaking pitches, which also fits the Indians and what they like to do. I should go pull up. The other thing with him is always looking at walk rate data. That is something else that they are big on. But the idea here is mostly comes down to the Indians were heavy in the Cape a year ago. I expect them to be heavy in the Cape this year as well. I think in some respects they probably feel pretty good about this draft relative to other teams because they do use that Cape so much and they won't have that data for the next draft. And I think that's where they could run into issues. In the past few years when they've had high picks, it's been Bo Naylor catcher prep, Ethan Hankins pitcher prep, Lenny Torres pitcher prep, Daniel Spino pitcher prep. They have been really, really prep heavy. So this would be slightly against the board, but it does fit with what we're seeing with a lot of teams, that idea that you're going to go college earlier on maybe, and if they did go prep, Nick Bitsko, who I will go into in detail when it's time to talk about him, but he just fits as a young for the class player. Tampa Bay goes ceiling. They have been very successful going ceiling. They have the minor leagues to allow them to go ceiling. Part of me really wants to swap these picks, though, the more I talk about them. Mick Abel is at times was viewed as the top pitcher in this class from the prep ranks, potential top 10 prospect. I don't think it's really necessarily a knock on him that he's not there right now. A lot of this is just we are in an extremely weird year and prep talent's going to get pushed down the board. Prep arms are going to get extra pushed down the board. And for Tampa, they can just sit here and grab a guy who is no worse than the 3rd prep arm on just about anyone's board I've talked to. They can continue to build up their arms. They're very good when it comes to pitcher development. Makes a lot of sense. Soderstrom is a young for class, I believe, catcher/outfielder with power potential, and there's part of me that thinks that he might make more sense there the more I think. Atlanta Braves were extremely conservative a year ago. When Alex Anthopoulos was with Toronto, he liked to go college pitching. This is a class with college pitching for days. Slate Ciccone is... I feel like he is a guy with a very high floor just because of his stuff and build. I could see him being a multi-inning reliever or a closer back-end guy, but I also would not just start there. He's very obviously has a very good chance to be a starter, potentially a mid-rotation type of arm. Pardon me. He came out this year and was showing a little bit more velocity. He's always had that build. He's kind of a name you're hearing a little bit more here and there. I think some people see some more upside in him, and he has a chance to kind of rise up, I think, into that second tier of arms before it's all said and done. At this point in time, college arm, Braves seemed to make sense, and Ciccone was just a case of the who I would view as likely the top rated arm available. If they did go prep, I have Dylan Cruz here. I think he's going to be an incredibly hard sign, but he has an advanced game, uses the whole field, patience at the plate. There's a lot of tools to like, but we know it's going to take first half of the first round money, so he could very likely end up at LSU. Oakland Athletics, college bat up the middle, good athlete. Trying to find that guy here. Lofton fits. He's like 50 grade everything. I don't know necessarily about if I trust 50 grade power, but he's 50 grade most things. And I think probably most places you look, he's going to be the pick here. He just makes a lot of sense. Freddie Zamora doesn't get hurt, I probably would have just locked him in here. But Lofton had a chance. He looked good for that first month, and right now this is kind of like his general range. If Oakland decided to go prep, which they really haven't done since Austin Beck, and that didn't work out well, and that seemed to kind of make them a little less sure of that. Ed Howard is a power hitter. Most people think he'll stick at short, but plus power, maybe 45 future hit. I don't know if people are necessarily putting a 50 future hit on him at this point, but the power is there. The ability to play short is there. And just to continue the Ed Howard talk as we go into the Twins draft for power. Outside of Royce Lewis, you're looking at guys like Alex Kirilloff, Keone Kabaka, Matt Wallner, Brent Rooker. Look at those high picks. What do they all have in common? They are power hitters. The Derek Falvey, who came over from the Indians, who like up the middle players, and like cold weather players, there's traditionally maybe a little bit more development in those guys. Howard fits all of those. Up the middle, cold weather, power. I think if he's there, he just makes too much sense. My cat apparently strongly disagrees with that. She must think that Dylan Cruz makes more sense, who is, I talked about with the Braves pick. I think he's going to be a very hard sign, but again, power there, good numbers in terms of things like exit velocity and the like. Could also appeal to the Twins, kind of in the similar mold, I think, as Alex Kirilloff. So just a name to keep in mind. The Yankees did go prep a year ago, and they have gone a little bit more prep over the past few years, but by and large, I feel like during Cashman's era, you go and you look, and day one, day two picks, they are like 75% college players. They are typically a very conservative team. Austin Wells is another player who had a very strong cape. He came out and performed well there, did not get a chance to prove himself. My cat very much wants to be a part of this broadcast and share. Did not get a chance to continue to prove himself. You have Spencer Torkelson at Arizona State, who's like 60 hit, 70 power potential, I think, down the line. Wells is probably 55, maybe 55 hit, 60 power. I don't think he's going to stick at catcher. I don't really know anyone who does. Maybe, there's the outside small sliver, but he's going to end up at first base more than likely. But you're getting a guy who can hit and hit with power potential, and we're starting to see the end of kind of that tier of college bats that I would kind of feel comfortable projecting into round one. And they're just coming fast and furious, and I expect that's what we'll see. Now, if they did go prep, I think Soderstrom, with his bloodlines and power potential, ability as a catcher or as an outfielder, I think that would all appeal and could make sense to the Yankees if they did decide to go with the prep route. So let's keep going. We're gonna push through. That is not the right slide. This is the right slide. Let's talk about the last pick in the first round, which belongs to the Los Angeles Dodgers. They draft all over the place. They do tend to lean college by and large. Justin Foscue. Again, I should have done all of my research on names. I'm not used to being someone who does this via video, trying something new. But either way, he's interested. I have them both Mississippi State guys. Foscue is hit tool. Westerberg is power. So pick what you prefer. The Dodgers, I think, tend to lean more towards hit tool first and foremost. That makes Justin Foscue basically the top player for them to consider at this point in time, and a natural fit for them at 29. So I mentioned Baltimore before. Now we're in the Comp A round, and saving money versus Gonzalez. I did get into a bit of a debate online with this. That the Orioles would never do that, and anyone who says right now that a team would never do something is like, no, the teams don't know what they're going to do. I mean, like, I can say it's very unlikely the White Sox are going to go prep, but no one knows. putting a never on anything is silly right now. But if they went Gonzalez is going to be cheaper than Martin. I don't have any doubt about that. I don't have any doubt at all. I think that you could save significant money, and if you are the Orioles and are sitting there at 30, Soderstrom's still on the board. He's an easy pick. You've saved money. Yes, they went with the catcher a year ago, but Rutschman's going to move quickly through a system. He's not going to block Soderstrom at all. And if you end up with Soderstrom moving to the outfield, the bat should play there. There's a lot of ways it can play out. Nothing prevents them from drafting him here. And it's just a mix of they saved money before, now they can use it. There's a clear player who kind of stands a little bit above the rest, and Baltimore can jump. The Pirates, again, I'm looking more conservative based on Cherington's past drafts. Miller is another name. I kind of feel like Slade Ciccone, which is on the rise based on a limited number of starts this year. He was looking good. He was looking like that. And honestly, if you're a pitcher, go to Louisville. Like there was a time where I'd say go to Florida. That's not to knock Florida now, but man, Louisville just seems to get the best out of their development. They're putting 3 or 4 starters every year into the draft. They just have it down. They know what they're doing, and that program keeps producing arms. Miller is the next guy up. He was not really someone we talked about a whole ton going into the season. It was pretty focused on Detmers, but good on Miller, and I think we're going to see him somewhere in this Comp A round when it's all said and done. If they decide to go with the bat route, Westberg's power at likely third base stands out. Royals. I kind of get Royals fans did not love my choices, and I understand. Lacey is an acquired taste. There's a little bit more risk there, and people would always prefer someone like Veen because of he's a little more exciting in terms of ceiling, and hitters are always more exciting in terms of ceiling. And then I had back-to-back shortstops. And, my thought process in this generally was they could just kind of build a group together to move through the system. Westberg is going to be a third baseman. He's not going to be a shortstop. Shortstop being Witt, and then their second-round pick would play second base. But I can kind of see all that now, and likely if I was redoing this, I would not have the same guy to them in the second round. I'd probably go with one of the college arms. Yes, I would lean towards more college stuff. Again, they were outside of Bobby Witt. They were extremely conservative last year, I recall when I was going through data. So I still would lean college. I think Westberg makes a ton of sense here, though, and I feel pretty confident in that. If they're to go with a college arm here, it's just JT Ginn is the value guy. If he doesn't get hurt, he's not here. But the problem is with Ginn, A, he got hurt. B, he's undersized. C, he's a draft-eligible sophomore, so we have 1 year of data. It all comes together to make him a guy who is going to take a significant slide. When you're undersized to begin with, teams are worried about your ability to hold up, so then getting hurt just makes them be like, aha, see, I was right. Nick Bitsko. Let's talk about what is kind of one of my favorite little facts, that Nick Bitsko reclassified. Okay, so he was supposed to be a junior this year, not a senior. He reclassifies to become draft eligible, which is a smart move because this is a weak prep pitcher class in general. So he immediately moves into the top 5 when he reclassifies. Now, if he doesn't sign this year, he'll go to Virginia, and Virginia, I'm not saying that he is for sure going to Virginia or not. I don't think he is. I would bet against it. But Virginia does have a really strong history of getting guys to go there and stay, specifically pitchers. Nate Savino was the top lefty in this class before he got himself, he might have even been early enrolled there, Mike Vasily a few years ago. So it's a program that's known for their ability to actually keep some of these commits who have potential first-round grades. But Bitsko, if he enrolled in campus, he would be draft eligible in 2022. If he had stayed in school and been a senior next year, he would have been draft eligible in 2022. He would have been a draft eligible sophomore. So graduating early does not change when he'd be draft eligible out of college. It stays exactly the same. So being draft eligible right now only changes his ability to be draft eligible right now versus next year. Otherwise, if he ends up at school, it's going to be the exact same year that he would be draft eligible. So I think he signs. That's what that whole thing does. I mean, he knows that. He would have looked and known when his eligibilities were. So that points out to me a kid who wants to go pro, wants to sign. The Diamondbacks like ceiling. They took a bunch of interesting prep arms a year ago. They can add another interesting one right here. I think it's a natural fit. If they decide to go prep, Ginn is, again, they decided to go college, I should say, not prep. Ginn just makes, again, a lot of sense in terms of potential and what he can do and where he would have gone if healthy. So for the Padres, I come back and get their arm here. And Beater and Ginn, which sounds like either a bad joke or a bad law firm, are kind of similar in my mind. Not in build, not in velocity, anything like that, but I think both of these are guys who kind of fit into more of what we're seeing the modern baseball go to. I think they could be awesome multi-inning relievers, guys who pitch 100 plus innings as relievers. I think they could be great openers. I think they both have potential as starters, but I think in both cases you're looking at a pair of arms that you can use in a lot of different ways to help a baseball team. And I think that would be, as this Padres team is kind of starting to come together, all their players are hitting the majors, they've made their big free agent splashes, they're going to start looking to add guys who can help and supplement the roster in a variety of ways. And I go with Beater because he's healthy and because he's got arguably the second best off-speed pitch in this class. He's another one of those guys who has made himself an absolute ton of money no one has really made themselves money, let's be honest, because they can, get $20,000 to sign right now. It's a very limited pool of money available to these players because of the changes for this year. But in terms of what he would have gotten in a contract, he has one of those guys who managed to take the little bit of time available to him and greatly increase his value. We'll see where he goes. I feel like this is kind of his range, much like when I talked about Bobby Miller, another player who helped elevate his stock. I think this is, in both of them, make a lot of sense kind of in this comp round range. Again, the secondary offering is going to make him very appealing because when you have that really advanced secondary pitch, it builds in a high floor because you can be a two-pitch guy and be an effective reliever. And if that's what he turns into, well, it's not the best use of a first-round pick, but anytime you get any player who is a multi-year contributor, you have made a good draft pick. Nope, that's not the right slide either. I'm not doing the slides correctly today. So let's move on to the Colorado Rockies. So the Rockies, as I've talked about, are about power, and more power. I forgot, much like with Soderstrom, I noticed it before, I forgot to include his position. I forgot to include Jordan Walker is committed to Duke. He's one of the bigger recruits they've ever had in the history of that program. At points viewed as a top 10 to top 12 player in this class. Big power, some of the best power in the entire class, power potential. So again, that's why he fits with the Rockies. The question's going to be, is he someone you can get? Or is he going to end up in school? Because it reminds me of the Josh Bell situation a few years ago. This is a case of very educated parents who, I don't want to confuse these, but sorry. I think it's Walker's parents, where one is an MIT graduate and the other is a Harvard graduate. Very intelligent people, going to put a high value on education. He might be someone who's harder to get, but if you can get him, just the power alone makes him a really interesting prospect, a better athlete than I think he gets credit for. If not, Blaze Jordan, one of the youngest players in the class, first base only. You can squint and see Torkelson in him as their, right-handed, undersized first baseman with big-time power. We'll have to see. It's interesting to see. It really feels like the industry has soured on Jordan. He is just in a free fall in a lot of places. So I'm not sure if that's because, first basemen just aren't valued by and large. It's the offensive guard of the MLB draft. If it's the size, what it is there, I haven't heard too much, but he's another player I think very easily could end up in college. Tanner Witt. So the Indians come back and they get the player who is age appropriate for them. And by age appropriate for them, I mean they like players who are, their theme song, I joked years ago, could be Wingers. She's only 17, because the Indians love those kids who are 17 on draft day. And I realize everything I just said sounds really terrible in the wrong light, but the Indians use models that show, in terms of player development and the like, when a player is young for his age, you have a better possibility of success. Tanner Witt is, again, a player who should be 17 on draft day. His father is a hitting coordinator for the Marlins, maybe in A-ball. I would maybe low A, high A. I don't know. I think it's A. It's one of the A levels. A few years ago, the Indians took Corey Holland, whose dad was a hitting coordinator, hitting instructor throughout Texas, and day 3, and gave him 6 figures. Witt makes sense. I think he's the top two-way player in the class right now. I've heard more talk about him of late and his ability as a hitter. I think most though see him as a pitcher. 6'5", big body. I think the Indians would likely try him on the mound, but there is always a chance you could give him opportunities to do both in the way the baseball is changing. Sleeper. His name is not Jack. It is Jared Schuster. I need to change that. Occasionally I just decide I want it. Like a few years ago, Kent State had a pitcher, Joey Murray, who's now with Toronto, and I could not call him Joey. It was always like I couldn't put and watch that still not be the right name. I'm gonna look that up as we're talking. Which is like something about the name Joey I could not put as a pitcher's name. I wanted to call him Joel. That's what it was. But no, it's Joey, and I was right. I have that. There are certain names I just seem to have these weird blocks with. But Schuster looked really good in limited opportunities. His first 2 years at Wake Forest were a struggle. That is not a pitcher-friendly park at all on any way, on any level. So it is not a surprise that he would struggle there. He looked good in the Cape, which is, again, our connecting line here. I've got to, again, go through and update and fix some of this stuff in terms of names, but Schuster looked really good in the Cape and in short time this year. We'll have to see where he goes, but I feel like this is kind of his range. And then for Tampa, JT Ginn. They stopped the slide, and they have multiple first-round picks, so they can afford him here, and they have multiple picks, so they can take the risk here, and they have a really strong minor, so they can take that risk. And is there a better place for JT Ginn to go than Tampa, where they started doing things like openers and advanced thinking and thoughts on rotations? Probably not. Like, they're going to make him a big-time weapon, I think, and I think it's just an ideal fit of player and club. And if he is on the board there, the rich get richer. I mean, that Tampa system is really good. It is phenomenal. And the crazy thing is, like, yeah, I'm giving him JT Ginn, but the sleeper, Chris McMahon, could go in the top 20 picks in this draft. Like, that's how much starting pitching depth there is. If you are picking at the top of round 2, you can grab a really quality pitcher. You can find a really quality college pitcher, probably in round 3. You're going to find someone in round 3 who's probably better than someone who went like early second round last year, because last year's draft was lacking in the college arms, and this year it's just loaded up. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I did it immediately after I finished a full day teaching, so a little bit slap happy, and that led to my Cleveland Indians bit going a bit blue. But as always, thank you for watching, for paying attention to my little corner of the baseball universe. I hope you enjoy kind of the informal approach I am taking with these videos as I discuss the how, what, and why of why I put these players in certain spots. I'm going to go through now and make some corrections on the website and fix some of these names, positions, and other issues. Each and every one of you, thank you. Bottom of my heart, this is a new venture, and I can only keep it going if people pay attention. So it is only thanks to everyone who's watching, commenting, sharing that this site is there.